Yes. So we are in Parashat Mishpatim, which is the book of Exodus, chapter 21. And now, chapter 21 forms the basis and the foundation of all the halakha and the Jewish law. But that's not what we're going to learn today. And this basis of the Jewish law is found in the Mishnah and the Talmud, in Baba Kama and Baba Metzah, and is the foundation of the tractate called Netzakim of damages and sorry, and of appropriations and a whole lot of things. But that's not what we're going to learn. I want to touch upon something that is so fundamentally important to how we live our lives today in context of what we're reading in the Bible. Point number one is, are we contextually correctly attaching ourselves to the Word of God? That is of prime importance, because if you're not contextually studying the Word of God in its right context, then errors would definitely creep in our understanding, and rejection would be rampant in our interpretation, and we would be off the derech. So that's what we should be very, very careful of. Now, in chapter 21, if you'll all have your Bibles, please open with me to chapter 21. And we're going to read something very interesting out there. We know that in chapter 19 and 20, chapter 19 is about Parashat Yitro, which we studied last time, where Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, comes in and he advises Moshe about how he's going to handle the interpretation of the Torah. So we studied that last time. And then chapter 20 is about God descending on Har Sinai and speaking to them, the Asirit, Devarat, the 10 words that he spoke to them. But really, did God speak to them? That's something we need to understand. So if you're reading from 19 onwards, I'll just give a few references before I come to my topic, which I want to speak about. In 1919 or 1916, it says, on the third day as morning dawned, there was a thunder and there was lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain and a very loud blast of the horn, and all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses led the people out of the camp towards God, towards the mountain, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain. Okay, and all of Sinai was in smoke, for the Lord had come down upon it in fire, and the whole mountain trembled violently. And the blare of the shofar grew louder and louder and louder. And as Moses spoke, God answered him in a thunder. So basically, it was Moses and the Lord having a conversation with this big setting and a fearful setting behind. And then he calls Moses up to the mountain. Moses goes up, an 80-year-old man, and he says, we come on top, goes up, and then says, Moses, now go down and tell them not to come and touch the mountain. So he goes back down again and warns them, don't come or touch the mountain for any reason. Okay. And then he says, you and Aaron come up, and you and Aaron come back on top together, but let not the priest or anyone touch the mountain. Now, chapter 20 is when God spoke these words, saying, and he told Moses all about this. And then Moses went down to the people and spoke to them, okay, in verse 25 of 19 and 20, verse 1, it says, and Moses spoke to them, saying, God spoke all these words, saying. So in so many ways, you realize that when God was trying to speak to them, they refused. So Moses had to go on top, come back, and then Moses spoke these words to them. And then Moses gives them these 10 words, right? And the moment all these words are being given, all the people witnessed the thunder and the lightning and the blare of the horn and the mountain smoking. And they stood back at a distance. They were frightened, they were trembling with fear, and they said, Moses, don't let God speak to us lest we die. You take whatever you have to and give it to us. We will listen, we will obey. And then Moses comforts them and says, be not afraid. God has come only in order to show you his power and might and to test you. Okay, don't be afraid. He's not going to do anything to you. Okay, and then God says something very interesting. He ends chapter 20 by saying, make for me an altar of the earth and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and the sacrifices of well-being. And your sheep and your oxen in every place, okay, where I put my name, you will do your sacrifices there. And if you make for me an altar of stones, do not build it out of hewn stones, but natural stone. Okay, because if you have hewn them, then you've profaned them. This is a big meaning I spoke to you last time about that. Do not ascend my altar by steps that your nakedness may not be exposed upon it. Then we come straight to Parashat Mishpatim, chapter 20. And immediately, the full context of everything changes out here. The first thing that God actually deals with is this interpersonal relationships, and it deals with the law. Because it says in chapter 21, starting from verse 1, it says, Ve'le ha-mishpatim asher tasim lifnahem. And these are the rules and the judgments you shall set before them. Commandments 1 to 5 are between God and man. And commandments 6 to 10 are between man and man. And this is very critical and very important to understand. That the first thing God talks about now is he's not expounding, or rather Moses is not expounding the first 5 commandments to them. God is emphasizing the last 4 or 5 commandments that's got to do with man to man. Therefore, we have Parsha Mishpatim spat in between of the giving of the Kabbalah Torah. And when you read chapter 21 and chapter 22, for any person who has some kind of understanding, you'll be appalled with the things that you read out there. And rightly so, because we're living in a different time, in a different contextual era. You'll be appalled. And you'll be questioning yourself, how can something like this be in the Bible? And how can God give instructions or the foundations of the law that's going to be applied in Israel by saying such things? How is it possible? So therefore, this is what I want to address today. Why is it in the Bible? Why are these horrendous things in the Bible? Let's read some of them. And then you'll get a gist of what, I don't know whether you'll have actually read chapter 21 and been aghast at it or questioned yourself and saying, no, man, just leave it. I know a lot of people who have tried to read 21 and 22. They've come to 20, skipped 21 and 22, and they've gone straight to 23 and said, okay, let's carry on. They do not want to read 21 and 22. Okay, let's read 21, certain excerpts of it. These are the rules and the judgments I placed before you. Ki tichene eved ivri shesh shanim yavod ve'shava'it yatse lakavshi hinam. When you acquire a Hebrew slave, that person shall serve 6 years and shall go free in the 7th year without exception. That's it. It will go without any, there will be nothing binding, or there will be nothing legal to hold that person back. He will go free. What do you mean by saying when you acquire a Hebrew slave? So now it's catapulting our understanding to this era of slavery and servitude, which was existent till about 300 years ago in this world. And it is still existent in parts of the Middle East and in Africa. Still. And I tell you, even in our own country, to some extent, if you go to homes and houses, you still get a lot of slavery, although it's pretty much modernized in a different way. But it still exists. Why is the Torah addressing slavery? And it says, when you acquire a slave, that person shall serve you 6 years. When you acquire, it says, ki tichene. When you buy a Hebrew slave, how can you buy somebody, right? They're sitting in the year 2024. What do you mean, how can you buy somebody? Okay. So this is what we don't understand. Now, to understand societal fracture, 3.5, 4,000 years ago, you have to understand that society was basically human capitalized. Capital for all life was another human being. And another human being worked in his capacity as a slave for you as a master in a pure agrarian context. Everything was agriculture. They worked in agriculture so they could serve society. And obviously, there was other small things that needed to be done, fundamental things, according to its generation and according to its age. There was no technological development. There was no information technology at that point of time. There was nothing. So all they had was very simple uh, development of human application with wood and stone or steel or copper or whatever they use, right? And agriculture. Human capital was based upon, or capital employed. I'm putting normal words today. A capital employed into the business, the firm, organization, the household was a human being. So all value was put on a human being. The human being was a person that could work for you and by his servitude could earn you money. So all monetary income that a person would get was counted by the amount of human capital he had in his firm or in his house. Now, when it says when you acquire a human slave, when you acquire, that means he has bought this person. Now, how would you buy a person? Now, take your mind to 3.5, 4,000 years ago about buying somebody. What would you buy a person for? One is you would buy a person for his servitude or his skill or his ability to work and contribute to your enterprise. It's as simple as that. Or for another reason. What was the alternate reason? That this person is a criminal. He's been held by the law. And because he cannot pay back for the crime, now he is going to be sold to somebody, and that money that he's been sold for is going to be given to the person he is stolen from, and the person who buys him now will make use of him for all commercial application and for commercial usage. So the seller is the person who's been stolen from. The court says, okay, take this money, you go your way, you got your money, this person now belongs to you because you bought him. And the value of the person, what do? Okay, I'm a potter, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a hard worker, I can do this, and I can work so many hours a day, and so many hours a day, I can earn you so much of money. Now, if you want to sell this person, what is the value you would put on this person? Okay, this person worked for me for 2 years, and because of him, I earned X amount of money, and therefore he is capable of earning you this amount of money. And if you want him, if you want a skill, I don't need him anymore. You pay me so much of money, and you can take him, right? Does this happen today in our lives? Not in this fractured way, for sure, right? Not in this demeaning way, but yes, it does happen. The greatest of footballers are bought and sold by clubs, right? It happens today also. The greatest of sportsmen are bought and sold for their skills and for their uh, sportsmen capabilities. It happens today. Headhunting happens today. You call up a person, say, I'm, I've got this company and I need you to be the CEO of this company. Please tell me what you want and I can offer you. And then you can poach and you can buy, sell, or whatever happens, but it still happens there. Only thing it happens in the more modern way, in the more modern context. Now, the the condition of the society that you live in is dependent, or the cultural angle is all dependent because of this one human index, living index that existed 3.5, 4,000 years ago in the known world. So society was based upon this human capability index, right? The economic status around the human development index, what was the per capita income of the person? See, I'm talking in modern terms, but you'll please try to understand what's happening. Uh, uh, the feudal state to empires, and this is the same story we read in the book of Esther also, right? It was a huge empire, okay, and then you had Haman, who was in charge of the labor ministry, basically of the king. And what did he do? One day he was sitting and he was moving around peoples because he had to employ capital, human capital, from this province to that province and this province or that province for economic development. And then he stumbled upon the Jews and he said, man, these people are these guys are a problem. What do I do with them? They they are of no use here, they are of no use there, let's get rid of them. The same thing which happened with Haman and this thing. Okay, so we're looking at an agrarian society with human capability index, and we're not looking at technology. Okay, what do you call the state of humanity? This is a place where humanity is trying to find its light. The paradigm of time tells us something very, very simple. It tells us that time is constantly moving forward. And as it's moving forward, humanity is always evolved in giving itself more and more and more comfort. Where has this started? It started with the story of Noah. So the sages have concluded, and it was a very wise thing which they said. They said, why did they name the child Noah, this one who will comfort us? Because uh, Noah was the first guy to build this humongous ark. It took architecture, it took design, it took mathematical calculations to sit and to fit two pieces of wood together, angles. I mean, it was not a simple thing to do. He was not just somebody who just tried to put two pieces of wood together. No. Okay. So get all this cleared out. So this industrialization didn't exist at that point of time. Never existed. Humanity was trying to find its light. And in the paradigm of time, humanity in every generation has evolved, it has progressed. And we've come out from really dark times. I mean, you can look at 200 years ago and you say, man, What were these guys thinking? Why did they do these weird things? Why did they make such weird laws, right? Uh, Look at our country today. We're looking at 2024, and today our government, which is rightly so, is saying, let's get rid of those archaic laws, those British era laws. There's no use. We'll make our own laws right now, which is a good thing. So the wisdom of the generation that it lives in is appropriate for that generation, is very, very appropriate. But the light and receiving more light and more light is only progress and evolving into a more society that is more or more developed. Okay. If you think that this is not got to do with time or the paradigm of time, then just think if time has to reverse, if you're capable of reversing time, how do we, how does everything devolve and go back to a stone age? Is that happening? It's not happening, right? Until we go back to the time until we actually found fire or something or whatever, or we were hunter gatherers. If at all there was, I don't know. Maybe we were not there to understand how humanity evolved. But time is moving forward, and when time is moving forward, light is constantly being shown upon each generation, and each generation is building upon the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of that generation, and we have development. And today, you can see in 2025, the world that we live in is so very much far advanced. Just think for a second that if Plato or Aristotle or any of these guys were able to sit and talk and work things out with quantum physicists or with NASA or or any of these guys in this world today, like super brains, what would the conversation be? The gap is huge. Although in his time, Plato and Aristotle and and all Archimedes or something, those guys, they must have had, they were brilliant. They were really brilliant. But the application of knowledge and the interpretation of knowledge is is it's big today. It's big. Humanity has really moved very, very far away from 3.5, 4,000 years ago, friends. And we are going to continue evolving into a different society more and more and more. It is going to happen. So in this paradigm of time, uh, we're looking at the past. We're trying to figure out the present, what's happening, right? And we're looking at the future, and now we are saying everything you can think about the future is possible. Everything is possible. When I have this entire thing in mind, and I look at the context of Parsha Mishpatim, and I take the slice of this generation and I put it in its right place, now I understand what Parsha Mishpatim is saying, because it is like the slice of time in the era of time that goes right there. And we are looking at the big picture and we are able to fit in this out there. Now, whenever God is, Pasha Mishpatim is talking about God saying this and do this and do this and do this, I want you to understand. It's not God who's giving the commandments to do this. It is God who is telling Moses how to deal with the wisdom of that generation. There's a big difference in this. A very big difference in what, if you understand what I'm saying. So the capability index of that generation is such that they're living in an era of time that there is a lot of darkness. There is not much light. So God is dealing with them by throwing this light and urging them and giving them a little prep and giving them a little direction, so that humanity can progress and find its light. And it's very, very important to understand what's happening out here. Now, when I'm reading Torah Mishpatim and I'm reading all these absolute crazy things, I'm saying, okay, so this is not about God. This is about humanity, humanity who has to deal with their own darkness and find the light. And God is giving them the opportunity to find this light. So therefore, let's slot this in the paradigm of time and understand in this generation, in this time of 4,000 years ago, this is what was applicable, and God was dealing with them in their own time and in their own context. So it's very wrong to look at 4,000 years ago with the spectacles of 2025. It is absolutely wrong. You have to use the spectacles of 4,000 years ago to see what is happening. Okay, so get this done. Now, when we're talking about coming out from darkness to light, as I said, everything, everything boils down to this one concept that God has put this into place, that humanity must be able to find its light. It's like a child. It's like your children, right? You can see a child growing in front of you, from a toddler to a young child, from a young child to a teen. And as he comes into his own as a teen, he starts expressing, he starts learning, he starts desiring about doing things, wanting to do things, right? And what are you doing? You are not inhibiting him. You are, directing him, giving little advice, throwing a little light out. Your son, do this, daughter, do that, this. And you are allowing him to find his own light till the time that that child is able to express and to definitively understand, okay, I know, now I know. So, and that's the time you're totally hands off and you say, now you're on your own. That's it. That's it. This is exactly what God is doing with humanity. So, whenever we're reading all these, all these crazy things in the Bible, and I've heard people say, but in the Bible, they do all wrong things and this and that. How can it be in the Bible? It's supposed to be holy book. It's not about God giving you this command. It's about God dealing with the situation best and allowing you to find the light, friends. And this is so important. So the paradigm of time is so essential to everything, that if I look at today, what is going to be the future? Because taking the example of this paradigm, I am saying, man, how much has humanity actually evolved? You mean to say we're not evolving today? I learned a great lesson. Now listen to this very carefully. I learned a great lesson some time ago. There were a couple of congregations that I was working with. Some of them were the slum ministry. And I used to go with them to the slums. I used to do a lot of ministry work with them in Pune and Bombay and all this stuff. And the people that we were ministering to were people that were absolutely in abject poverty. One good meal a day was a very great thing for them. Their houses were in places of sewers and slums. I mean, you guys, if you all have done slum ministry, you all would understand what I'm saying. We used to be ministering in houses that were built on sewers, big sewers with flowing water there and huge rats, all those. And we used to be ministering out there and praise and worship and Bible study, and we do all those things. Okay, and even in Pune, go to houses, small shanties, go from house to house, ministering. And this happened many couple of years ago. Over a period of time, I have watched these small congregations grow and flourish. Those same boys and girls and children who had, who were just around the corners and doing nonsense, have jobs, and today they own transport and motorcycles, and some of them are married, and some of them, and they've. I could see how they have improved their life, and all that is reflective of the congregation they are in. And now when I visit that congregation, I'm like, I'm amazed what that congregation was and what that congregation is today. This morning, I got a call from one of the pastors who was so happy. So I asked him, Pastor, how is the church doing? How is everything doing? It's fantastic, great. This is happening, that is happening, this is happening. And I have personally seen that particular pastor who used to literally drive a rickshaw. Then he went to this old Omni Maruti, and he had those boys and girls around him who would set up things. Today he drives an Innova, and he's, he's I mean, he's at a level now where he has seen prosperity, and it's been 25 years doing ministry work. So he calls me today. He tells me, what, I want to tell you what happened. He says, I went to minister. I went to the Gulf, one of the countries in the Gulf, and I ministered out there. I said, really? Wow, fantastic. Absolutely. God is taking you outside the country now from the slum. And I've seen all this happening in front of me. And then I realized one thing when I pictured the bigger picture with his congregation and churches, I've realized that besides the needs of the church and the workings of the church and the congregation, what's happening there, there is also a social upliftment that is happening among all its members. People are being socially uplifted, and this is God's doing. Why? Because until the people are not socially uplifted in congregations, they're not going to be able to be happy with themselves. It's been given for us to feel validated and given to us to feel good and to feel as if we are part of this world. This country in the last 10 years has developed tremendously. You know it, I know. There's been tremendous development in technology and so many things in this country. And all that is also filtering down to the people. And everybody, in some way or the other, is able to receive of that flourishing that's happening in our economy. We have gone from a 10th biggest economy to today the 5th biggest economy. In fact, it's the 4th. We've overtaken Japan, and it's said by 2027 or maybe latest by 2030, we will be probably the 2nd or the 3rd biggest economy. And that is a huge achievement for this country. But with all of this also, even congregations all over are prospering. And we are defining life by the comfort we are getting. How did this comfort start? It started, I told you, with Noah, that it said that this child will comfort us. When it spoke about that, the sages immediately started thinking, what is this comfort all about? Because the land before the flood was a curse. It was not giving them anything, right? So they had to, what all did they have to do for food? And then it says, so the sages came to a very simple understanding. It says, the comfort is symbolic of a very simple invention of humanity. And the invention is the plow. That simple invention of the plow has brought comfort to humanity. What do you mean that plow has brought comfort to humanity? Because the plow now has given you rest from digging the ground. The plow is plowing the ground, but the plow is attached to the cow or to the donkey, right? And the donkey and the cow needs food to eat. So that simple plow has started industrialization for all of humanity. If the plow was not invented, industrialization would not have started. Now you must be thinking, really? But think of it. Think of it. That simple plow has started industrialization of the entire country. Now in Torah Mishpatim, when we're reading out here, oh, it's gone off. It's dealing with human capability index and human social fracture and structure, and dealing with how humanity at that point of time, what is wrong with this? At that point of time is trying to find its light and trying to understand how do I better myself. So therefore, when God brought them out from Egypt, and they were in this state of servitude because that's what they knew from Egypt. All they knew was how to be a slave. And all they knew was that if I work hard, I get a meal, a square meal by the end of the day. And that also brought so many social pressures and so many social family pressures in so many ways. So this is what Torah Mishpatim is about. Now it goes on to say other things also. It goes on to say, I think it's closing out here. Okay, let me read this. I'll try and share out here. Just give me a bit. I'll share from here. Okay. And we shall read. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. When you buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years shall he serve you. 7th year he shall go on his own, and he shall go forth free, gratuitously, uh, without any reason. If he came by himself, he shall go forth. If he was the possessor of a wife, then his wife shall go forth with him, with his children. Yet if his lord should give him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and the children shall become a lord's, and he may go forth by himself. Yet if the servant should say, yes, I love my lord, my wife and my sons, I shall not go forth free, then the Lord will bring him close to God, okay, and bring him close to the door of the jam, and his Lord will bow his ear with an oil, and he will serve him for the eon. Now, whenever it says for the eon or leolam, it means until the Jubilee year. It's not eternity, it's not forever. Okay, the Bible doesn't work that way. Now, this is what gets, your bile flowing, right? See what the Torah says. When a man sells his daughter as a maid servant, she shall not go forth as the manservants do. How can you sell your daughter in servitude? Friends, how can somebody sell his child in servitude? It's absolutely crazy what's happening. As I told you, listen in context, that this is prevalent in society, and God is trying to give them a chance to come into the light so they will learn how to slowly evolve out of this situation. And this is what is happening. Therefore, it was necessary at that point of time to give in the law. The law was applicable so much then because of the generation that they lived in. And truly, after that, it got more refined and more refined and more refined and more refined. And today we're living in 2025. Not to say that humanity is any better. We may look modern, we may look, modest and dress well and look this thing, but we still need the law. I explained to you last time. Without the law or any kind of law, we're not going to survive. So we still need. Nothing has changed. We're just living in a world that is uh, little more affluent. That is it. So these are things that when you read now, uh, it just blows your mind away. But read it in context. And then it goes on to say, if she's displeasing in the eyes of the Lord, who has appointed her for himself, then he will let her be ransomed. Oh man, you're buying somebody, you don't like her, you're selling her off. What is this all about here? Seriously. Oh man. And then if he's taking another for himself because he does not like her, he shall not diminish her food, her covering, and also her cohabitation. That means she has rights for food, shelter, and for physical needs also. Cannot deprive her of that. Now there is uh, there is a story later on in the book of Numbers where the daughters of Zelophehad, right? You know Zelophehad, the three or five daughters of Zelophehad, they come to Moses and say, you're giving inheritance to everybody. We have no brother. We're just daughters, right? And our father died, and his inheritance is it's lying out there. Please give us the inheritance. Right? Please give us the inheritance. Now Moses is stumped. Why is he stumped? He has no answer. I mean, he's the one who's dispensing justice to everybody. But he doesn't know what to do. Why? Because he's caught between the wisdom of his generation and trying to interpret it in what God is going to allow it. So what does he do? He says, wait, and he goes and asks the Lord, Lord, this is the problem. What do we do? What does God tell him? He says, give them their inheritance. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. You mean to say that God is taking the wisdom of generation and just destroying it? Yes, he is. If they never asked God, if Moses never asked God, he would have just ruled and status quo would have been carried on for generation to generation, generation. Therefore, it is in the hands of the you and me, or the elders, or the seniors, to affect change in our generation by the wisdom of God. And if we don't know, then we have to seek God's advice on this. But every environment that we create for ourselves, it is in our hand. God is watching. And this is where time plays a big, because everything, everything is in the vortex of time. As I told you, time cannot be reversed. If you reverse time, then we are all going back to where we started from. Why we only progressing? Why we not regressing? Why is humanity not devolving? Except for I know a few countries and a few stupid people in this world who are devolving. It's still happening in different parts of the country with religious fanaticism, and they're devolving. But the rest of the country is evolving. Does anyone have an answer for this? And to what extent are we evolving? Where is that end point? Someone asked me that day, you think we're going to go to Mars? I said, absolutely, we're going to go to Mars, we're going to colonize. You and me will not be alive for that, but yes, we will colonize Mars one day. Are we going to colonize the moon? Yes, we're going to have a lunar colony. Yes, we will have. I'm very confident of it. And if I'm alive, hopefully I'll buy a ticket to the moon. I'd love to take that journey. Why? When they were building the Tower of Babel, and they were building and they were building and building, God didn't interfere. We were just watching them. The tower was not the problem. When they said, let us make a name for ourselves, then God said, okay, now this is getting too much. God does not have problem with your 100-store buildings that you have in your Manhattans and your South Mumbai's and no. God does not have a problem with all of that. God has a problem when you start rebelling with him. So therefore, the laws that are given for that generation must be evolved into its interpretation for the wisdom of the generation that we live in. It's very, very important. Now, the ancient people. I'll give you a small example of marriage itself. The ancient people, how did they come together, husband and wife? The earliest and the earliest of people. Just one man, one woman said, okay, she's my wife. Went around the tree, consummated, okay, this is my wife, that's it. Finish. That was it. No one interfered. Okay, this is your husband, this is your wife, you belong to each other, very good. That integrity, and they live that way. But as society grew, and that system was called bia in Hebrew, bia, from the word bo, to come, bia. In fact, it's still used in our culture. We call them, what do you call that? The word bia still used as not marriage, but engagement or something. I don't still use. But it's a different meaning altogether today. But the word bia is still used. This bia was very simple then. But it was simple because humanity had integrity. But as humanity progressed and evolved, although the man and woman were together, but yet they wanted assurances. There was no integrity and simplicity between each other in that relationship. So the man said, I want a wife and I want to make sure she's my wife. And society said, are you married? Okay, prove to me you're married. I can't prove to you, but we are married. We belong to each other. No. You have to prove to us that you're married. Okay. Now you go and form an organization and say, okay, get married, get two witnesses, make a certificate. Great, wonderful, absolutely. And we have progressed, evolved, and we are this. But the wisdom of what we live in today is appropriate for our generation. You cannot live in a generation today saying, this is my wife and this is my husband, where's a certificate? We don't have a certificate. It doesn't work this way. Because you need it. You need it for all legalities. So are we truly free? No. We're not free. Who said we are free? Freedom is being subject and bound by something that you like and love to do. Freedom is not being unbound by anything. So we are bound, we are still slaves, and we're still in servitude to our society, to our families, to the economy that we are in, a part of, and each of us are contributing to our country and to our economy, whether you like it or not. So nothing has changed from then to now. What has only changed is that our level of comfort has changed because of that humble plow that took us on a level of comfort by which industrialization started. And it took 5,000 years approximately for humanity to start finding the light. Now, what happened in between? We had wars, we had empires, we threw around tribes and peoples and nations and slaughtered, and we crossed continents to conquer for gold and for silver, and crossed seas for spices, and what all has happened to humanity. And yet we say, God, all this has happened, and why haven't you done anything? The wrong question to ask. God's saying, work it out, man. Find a light. You have to come into yourself. This is like a father saying, my son, my daughter has to grow up. And yes, along the way, he gives you the Torah, he gives you this, he gives you your Bible, he gives you your prophets, he gives you this. Come, 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 slowly, slowly, slowly. So if we understand these things, friends, now when we read Torah Mishpatim and all these other things, you will understand what God is doing. You will understand how God wants us to develop ourselves and develop ourselves to a pinnacle. Now, I'll ask you a question. What is the pinnacle of knowing that society has developed to the best of itself? What do you think is that one thing that can define where society has developed to the best of itself? The answer is very, very surprising. The answer is bread. Bread. Why bread? Because bread is a representation, as I told you, of the human soul. That I can take something and crush it, destroy it, give it life again, metamorphosize it into something else that's called bread. And bread is the most refined, symbolic food of a human being. So a human being that partakes of bread is a very refined soul, or supposed to be a very spiritually refined and evolved soul. Therefore, when you're sitting and eating and you're breaking bread, you're not like a wild animal tearing food apart. You're not scavenging. You're sitting on the table of the Lord and you're eating with an elevated soul. And that elevated soul is called the marriage supper of the Lamb, friends. So, besides what you and me think, and we've been taught and believe about salvation, all that is right. It's not, it's beautiful. But there is another extra level I want you to start thinking about. And this level is what? Level is improving yourself. Improving yourself emotionally, intellectually, elevating your soul, and eating. That's why we eat. At least in the Jewish context, on the Torah and the biblical context, eating is a commandment, it's a mitzvah. You will enjoy your eating. Do not deprive yourself. You will eat. You will eat Shabbat dinner. You will eat the Shabbat breakfast. You will have the Shabbat lunch and the Shabbat dinner, and you will eat, you will eat, you will eat for Purim, you will eat for Sukkot, you will eat, and you'll eat. It's a mitzvah to eat. The first commandment ever given to a human being is to eat. Thou shalt eat of all the trees of the garden. The first commandment, which means that am I truly left Egypt, Mitzrayim? And if I'm standing at Har Sinai and Parsha Mishpatim is pattern between out there. It's reminding me I am no more animalistic in my nature. I am evolved into a better spiritual human being than what I am. Many of us are stunted because we want to pursue things that are so lopsided and one looking at things in one way that the other aspects of you get lost in this transition that you're going through. And to some extent, I have also experienced that. But God has been telling me since of late, in His own way, He's been showing me, says, Mark, you neglected that part of your life, get it straight. And you neglected that part of your life, get it straight. You cannot serve me when other things are also neglected. Friends, our scope is much more bigger than what you and me think. Okay, so I really wanted to bring this point to you that within this paradigm and vortex of time, we got to see the big picture. And to end now, time is not, if you've been to the airport, how your luggage, baggage escalators keep coming and they keep going round and round. That's not how time works. Time works in packets, in rega, in moments. Every moment, and every moment brings information and revelation. That's why we use the word rega. Rega is one moment. Ashni, second. Every second is one packet of information that's coming. And we have to be mindful of that every second that's coming through. You got to pick up. It's like when you buy a loaf of bread, and the loaf of bread has slices in it. You take out one slice, that's one moment in time. And time keeps coming to us one slice at a time. One moment in time, Rega. So start getting mindful and looking at the bigger picture. If ever you have felt that you have shortchanged yourself anywhere in life, the first thing you say, Lord, I'm guilty of that, Lord. I'm sorry. Please let me rectify that portion part of me. It's very, very important. Otherwise, I'm animalistic in my behavior, and that going to reminds me of Mishpatim, that I cannot go back to that system ever again. I should never ever go back to that system. Or I'm trying to live two systems, that system and trying to be holy and spiritual to God. It doesn't work that way. So be encouraged. Okay. What I'm trying to do is basically put the Torah into context of the wisdom that we live in today, in application. If we do not apply ourselves correctly, we are going to be in trouble. We cannot keep going to churches for 20 years and just listening to the same thing over and over again and over again, year by year, doing this. No. Where is the growth? Where is the application? This is what I'm trying to push through to the yeshiva. So friends, I hope you all have been encouraged with what we've studied today. And I hope you all listen, take it to heart, apply, and look on the bigger picture of what's exactly happening. And understand, God is not about all these horrible things, right? He's only dealing with the wisdom one moment in time for us. And God is beautiful, right? And He knows the best for us. May we find His light to change our generation. May we find His light. God bless. Shabbat Shalom, friends. I see you all tomorrow for the morning at 7 o'clock. If those who are coming, please come. We have a wonderful time for prayer. Okay, I'm going to put the recording off. And if anybody does have something to speak about or testimony, it will be welcome.